Today we thought we will do something a little bit different. We thought that it will be nice that Naveen, Shamini, myself will share about Swamiji and different phases of his life where he had to express different of the divine qualities. You know, Shamini will start when he was a kid, and then there's a part where he built Ananda, the part when Naveen will take the part when he had already built Ananda, even though he never really stopped serving his guru and building, so to say. But his expression was very, very different. It was much more just in bliss all the time. That's the face that some of us got to know him, at least personally. So it should be a fun time together. And yes, you want to start or introduce?
I can start, I suppose.
Yes, first.
Okay, so as you were saying, so I think for all of you who are there, you may want to come later. Hopefully online you can see, but we just try to put, just a few pictures which you can enjoy later when you'll have time to come and offer your pranams. And it was a nice idea that actually Bharat had of like the early years, what was Swamiji's consciousness, and then the middle years when he was more, as he said, when he had to put out more energy, and later on. And actually it's very interesting because one thing that Swamiji writes in his book, The New Path, you will love that book. If you haven't read it yet, please do get it. It's really a wonderful story. And he starts off in that book with how he met his guru, because that was in a way the way he saw his whole life. That was the only thing that mattered to him. But one of the things he says very early is that from the moment he was born, he felt he had come already fully formed, fully himself. He said, I was already fully myself. Like usually we all take a human body and then we develop our consciousness, we try to grow, we learn lessons. But that was a very interesting statement, something that he left up to our interpretation to see, what does that mean? I came fully myself already when he was born. And many times, people also have suspected he came free. That's why, there was these few devotees. They got a chance to put together some video footage of Swamiji from childhood to, later on when we had the movie Finding Happiness, which some of you have seen. If you haven't, we want to do a showing again for some of you who haven't. They had to collect some footage. And so they visited Swamiji's brother, his house, and they basically collected, old clips that the parents had taken when the kids he had 3 brothers. And it was very interesting. Some were with, many children when he was playing with all his friends. And, one thing they said, it was always very easy to tell who Swamiji was in the crowd. It was never like, which one must be Swamiji? Because it always was something distinct stood out in him. There was always, I suppose, this light, which was shining. And if you see even these pictures when we were putting them, there's a sort of similar some aspect throughout the years, from when he's little till the end. There's something in him that was always the same. And that's also a sign of a free soul. So that may be one little sign there for us. But he says, when he was born, at that time, his mother, during her pregnancy, had felt a lot of joy throughout, inwardly had felt a lot of joy throughout that pregnancy. And when he was born, he was the first child, she said, Lord, this first child of mine, this firstborn, I give to thee. I offered this to you, this child. So in a way, he had that element. But, also as a child, he tells us some very beautiful stories. So when he was very small, they say often, the saints have written that, in the 0 to 5 age, the child is very, very close to God. And so many times, children will say things, will perceive things that are very because it's still sort of half there, a baby maybe still half in the astral world, not fully yet here. But he used to basically, every time he would go to sleep, for example, he would see this light and he would just go into that light and his consciousness would expand into infinity. He says charmingly later that for a long time I thought everyone used to have this experience when they go to sleep, that everyone just goes into the light. But he didn't know at that time it was just a unique aspect for him. He used to also, like his mother had a mirror which was she used to keep on the dressing table. So whenever the sunlight used to fall on the glass, it used to make beautiful like refractions, no? And so he used to just gaze into those rainbow lights and go into the memory of a world where he had been with just those rainbow lights and those colors. So he was basically not from this world, as you can see, very clearly. He was much more in memory that there is a higher reality, there is a higher existence. And he said in his own words, earth is just a temporary exile. He was very aware of this. It's just a temporary exile we've been put in. But there's a higher reality to be accessed for us. So as a child, that was more his consciousness. He was always, in memory of the light and beautiful experiences. Then as he grew, he says also that joy that he always had inside turned into enthusiasm for life. So anything he was very enthusiastic about. In fact, when he came to Master, Yogananda ji told the other disciples, if we had Walter sooner, this work would be much bigger than it is. Because that enthusiasm was something he carried till the end of his life, basically. And once he found Master's teachings, it was like, oh my God, everyone should know about these teachings. And that was that. But that quality came out even as a child. And he would say when he would go and play with his friends, it was so magnetic that all the kids would want to do whatever his ideas were. In those days, they didn't have too many games and things. They would make up games. And whatever he would come up with, they would automatically come into that enthusiasm, that magnetism. He had sort of that leadership already inside. And so those qualities were there. But also, very interestingly, around the age of 10 or so, so let's say 10 till his late teens, he went through a very turbulent, so he had some health challenges. You can read about, he had something at the age of 11, I think he had colitis or something. So he had to be sent to a boarding school for his health in Switzerland, so far away from home. In those times, the political turmoil and all, there was a lot of bullying, there was a lot of meannesses. So he had to face all of that. And so as he writes, his heart broke many times, seeing where is the goodness, why people are doing this to each other. And he was very, very sensitive also in that way. He used to but he learned very hard lessons, as he puts it. And he says also God was basically drawing me to closer and closer to him through all of those experiences. And it's very interesting if you read the time from his around 10 till he found Master. That for most of us, we are just teenagers, maybe we are a bit rebellious, we are mostly free. Our families take care of everything, Those have been our experience. But his teen years, if you read, it was very tumultuous. Like he had so much questioning. He used to always be wanting to find what is the truth here? What is the reality here? He would always be asking, questions. Why am I here? What is the purpose? There must be something bigger. And he came to the conclusion that, no matter what I don't know what I want, but all I know is I don't want what everyone else wants, the normal job, money, success, fame. There's something else, but he was just craving. What is it? And he hadn't heard the term guru. He didn't know all these things in those days. In America, in the 1900s, it was not known. So finally, he went through this process, and through college, a lot of seeking, a lot of churning. As I was reading some of those years, you think of it, a child from age 10 till 19, 20, whenever he came to Master, going through that. We go through that as adults. We've gone through that churning process before coming on the spiritual path. But the same thing he went through very early. And by the time you can imagine he found Master, so that itself, I will touch on that, and that will be the end of my early years part. He tells that story again and again and again. We've gone through that many times. For him, his finding Master was everything. That was it. It was like, there was the churning process, and then I found Master, and that's it. Like after that, his life, in a way, you can say the story began. So that's also for us. We also know that the moment we find the answers here, it's like a rebirth. It's like finally someone understands what's really going on. Someone can tell me what have I done to come here, how do I move forward, all those answers, it just makes us relaxed. So that itself, you can imagine, by the time he was ready to find Autobiography of a Yogi, he was so ripe. The churning process, how much experiences he had been through already with so many already tough things in life. He had seen everything. He had decided, I'm going to go be a hermit. He was waiting for a ship, basically. And in that moment, the ship hadn't come. So there was not a chance to just disappear, and go somewhere. So he said, okay, let me just go into this bookshop. And then he went in, saw the face of Master on the cover. He had already started studying Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. But now he was like, oh, this is a new book. What is this? He saw the face of Master and it called him. But then he rejected it for a moment. And then the next day, basically, he was walking by and he felt this thought came in him. If you don't open the book, if you don't read the book, how will you know if it's not for you? And he rejected it again mentally. No, but I'm too intellectual. I don't need to read more books. And he said at that moment, he felt a force pushing him towards that bookshop again and saying, encouraging him, go and get that book. And so he went with that. He picked up the book and took it home and he read it, he said, in 3 days non-stop with tears of joy, laughter, and just, it was everything he was looking for. And just through the book, it's amazing to see he got all his answers, in the sense of, Master was a vegetarian. He just was like, I'll leave meat from tomorrow. There was no question. It was so easy, He was a monk, I'll also be a monk. And it was just like an overnight, like you can say in a way, inwardly, his discipleship already started before he even met Master. And so that connection was very strong. And then, of course, he took the next bus. He tells us the story across the country. That itself is a miracle, how he got to meet Master, because in those days, you don't just show up to meet Master. You had to take an appointment and you had to study the lessons and all of that. He just showed up. And somehow, Divine Mother told Master, he has good karma, and of course we know the story there, and Master said, you have good karma, I will take you. And just that moment though, even before he reached Master, he was praying inwardly for forgiveness. Again, I'll let you read this story, but he was praying inwardly for forgiveness because of he remembered the eyes of Sister Gyana Mata had been very deep, even though she had told him, you can't just show up like this. But he prayed inwardly for forgiveness, that how he felt about her. And he said in that moment, he felt he had been accepted by Master. So his discipleship was already, he had already felt it in his heart even before being in the presence of the Guru. Then, of course, once he was in Master's presence, he was just desperate. And we now can understand, after the whole teenage years of churning, so much questioning, you finally are in front of the Guru. It's just like, you have to take me, otherwise I will die. And that's how he really felt, And so by the end of that, he found the Guru and then continues, and in a way was his real birthday, his start of his life, as he says. And from there, they will continue.
Yeah, certainly that time when he met the Guru was probably the main episode of his life. And as Shamini say, I think in some way or the other is also the first episode of our life when we really start to understand what life is all about and what we need to do. Now, I took what we often call the willpower years of Swamiji. He always had willpower. He said that he never struggled with willpower. It came to him very, very easily. In fact, whenever he will put his will to do anything, he will accomplish almost impossible things. In the early times of India's independence and all, he even got a meeting with Nehru at that time in order to acquire a piece of land property outside of Delhi. And he actually got permission where thousands of other companies had tried but no had succeeded, just because he had that will, he had that attunement for what it takes to make things happen in this world. Now, there's a fun incident that I think we tell this story sometimes in meditation, that he was going to Master and say, Master, I'm trying to meditate and somehow I don't feel like getting anywhere. Am I not trying hard enough? And Master replied, no, you're trying too hard. It becomes nervous, it becomes restless. We may think, oh my God, trying too hard. What does that mean? But obviously we had to try with all our energy, but without tension. He has so much will that probably in his meditation he was putting tension in that way. Now we can will our way to the divine, In some ways we have to storm the gates of heaven, but that willpower has to be also refined. The same will that we put to run a race is not the same will we put to meditate. It's different aspects of willpower. So he had to be refined. And Swamiji, he lived with Master for 3.5 years, but Master kept him very close. He kept him very close. He took him right away to the desert to work, to help him work with his editing. In fact, Master tells a story how he was wondering, Master had, of course, a desert retreat in what is called 29 Palms, and he said, I prayed to Divine Mother, who should I take with me to the desert retreat? And your face came, Walter. I said, I prayed 2 more times to make sure it was the right, and the 2 more times your face came. That's the only reason why I took you. But Master, of course, at those times he was writing the Gita, and he asked Swamiji to start working on some editing for the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam and a few other things. But interestingly enough, Master never babied him, nor any of his disciples really, but certainly not Swamiji at all. In fact, there is a story that when editing, he told him, work like lightning, but don't change a word. And if you are editing something, usually you had to change some words. And so Swamiji didn't know what to think of that. And later on, he understood what it meant, not necessarily at that time, but at that time he did whatever he could. He changed the commas and punctuation and capital letters and that kind of, I guess it's called grammar. But later on he understood what Master had meant was that don't change the meaning of what I want to say. Yes, because Master, he spoke from cosmic consciousness and he put it on paper in some way. But he was very aware that, he did not go through all the bothers of, the English language and what to do. He needed someone to help him put things into more structure, maybe easier to read, easier to flow. His autobiography Yogi was edited also by other people. Nevertheless, that's how Master worked with him. And Swamiji admits that he probably was not mature enough spiritually at that time, because even though we believe he was free, still we go through what we go in life. Like Master, we know that sometimes when he was a child, he had to be scolded by his mother, or as Naveen told that story recently, by Lahiri Mahashaya appeared to him and kind of put him back on track. Even though he will always have been on track, still, you go through adolescence, through childhood, you're going to do things like a kid or like an adolescent. It's not like the masters are born 90 years old, right? They go through these things as well. And he had to also mature in some ways. Even though he was always refined, there is a story of how once all the disciples were lined up to meet Rajarsi Janakananda, which we know was Master's most advanced disciple. And it was the first time that Swamiji met Rajarsi. And he said he just came dressed like, with anything, his karma yoga clothes, as we will call them. He, his shirt was all full of dirt, some holes here and there. He thought, yeah, I'm a monk, what does it matter? And Master saw him and said, go change, You don't go like that, you don't greet people like that. And he had to, Master refined him in so many ways. But the most important thing is that Swamiji studied and meditated on and thought of every single interaction he had with Yogananda. He said that his autobiography, The New Path, he didn't write any stories of Master until he had meditated. He didn't dare to write the stories until he had meditated enough to kind of understand what Master actually was doing through him. And that is a wonderful lesson for all of us. And he said then, when he wrote also what he felt that particular story, what meaning it had, or what particular lesson was there to be learned. And he wrote very clearly, but I also had to meditate on how much should I write and how much should I let people take the meaning themselves, deeper meanings themselves. So even when we read Swamiji's books, Master's stories, there's always more that we can explore in them. And Swamiji gave us that example that our job as disciples is not just to read and whatever the Guru said, I'll just repeat. How do we make it our own? How do we make it real in our day-to-day life, but without changing a word, meaning without altering the real meaning. But a truth will be true in many aspects of life. The ultimate truth, yes, very high, but then how can I make it more practical for myself without losing sight of that highest truth? But from my reality, how can I work to that? And that's how we should approach the scriptures really and all these teachings. But Swamiji, he actually, for me, you see this picture here, this picture here, this picture here, that one there with the suit, is looking at him and those years, he really, to me, looked like a yogi, like the perfect yogi that one should aspire to be. They say that at those times, if you have seen the energization exercise video of Swamiji, you know, he was big. He wasn't fat or something like that, but he was big. He was strong. He was powerful. People say that he used to always, his chest was in front of everything else. He led through the heart, that if he was to hit the wall, the chest will be the first thing that will hit the wall, because he was really leading with the heart. When he came to Master, he was too intellectual, but Master made him work in devotion, and that came out. So his willpower was now guided by devotion, guided by attunement to Guru. And it's because of that that he was able to do so much. In these years after, when he was in SRF, of course he was helping build the work tremendously. In fact, that piece of land that we talked about, he had gotten it for SRF. But after he left SRF, we don't understand how much he had to do. Somebody was telling me the other day that how they could appreciate Swamiji in how he was able to bring people together. Because even for us, in a team, in the office, maybe at the house, to bring 3-4 people together is so hard. You know, to get them in the same, it's almost impossible sometimes. He had to do it with hundreds of people. And he actually succeeded in doing it. But why he was the perfect yogi, his posture, what he expressed, those years, but he actually didn't even want to do any of these things. His was very clear that he wanted to be a hermit. He wanted to meditate all the time or most of the time. But his guru told him, your life is one of intense activity and meditation. Your job in life is to write, edit, and lecture. And Swamiji told me, but I don't want to do those things. And Master told him, well, you better learn to like it, because that's what you have to do. You know, the guru did not have like, oh, okay, you don't like it, okay. Maybe you can do this instead. No, that's what you have to do. And Swamiji always remarked how Master put intense activity before he put meditation, right? So he took it to heart. And he told Master, but Master, haven't you written everything that needs to be written? And Master told him very strongly, said, don't say that. Much more is needed. Because we understand that a guru comes for some time. Christ's teachings were not really widely available when he was alive. Even when some of his disciples were alive, it was until St. Paul, who actually didn't even meet Christ in the body, that his teachings spread everywhere. All the great masters can only come for some time, and it's up to the disciples to spread that. I believe that's probably why Swamiji came so late to Yogananda, so that he could actually, for a long time after Master passed away, keep spreading the teachings and keep making it in a way that we all can access. It is because of that will and that devotion of Swamiji that we are all here. And that's what we always say. Thanks to him that we all have this opportunity to learn Kriya and to have this Sangha to help one another in the quest for God. But it is very easy to get lost, because at the beginning of Ananda, when Swamiji finally decided, and I'm not going to go over the whole story, he had to put so much will. Not only he had to build the buildings himself with other people, at least some of them. They say that he used to make geodesic domes. I don't know if you know what it is. It's a dome that is made of little triangles, you know, like this. So it gives the illusion of being a dome, I suppose. But it's little triangles. And they had to staple a tarp into boards like for hours and hours. And Swamiji said, like, At some point, my hand could not get any more. It was so hard. But then willpower, and 1, 2, 3, and he could do it again for hours at a time, because the greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. And he said that even one time they had worked the entire day or for a few days, and then the whole thing again collapsed completely before they could finish. And yet again, he will do it and do it. Not only that, at those times he had to give energy to the community, direction, lectures. He was writing his books, and at the same time, he was going every day of the week to a different city around. He will drive around every single week, different cities, to give classes, because those classes are what funded Ananda. At the beginning, people were there and they were just like the hippie type, oh, God will take care of everything. And Swamiji, they were right, because I guess I was taking care of everything and they were proven right. Not that he was God, but God was taking care of everything through him. And he had to put tremendous will even to get things started. He said that even if he will open his mouth, he say something, there were like 10 people saying something different. And we have no idea how much energy and will he had to put to even get Ananda off the ground. We have it very, very easy right now. It really took someone with such will and attunement to get this thing started. But the interesting, and for me, why he was the perfect yogi is many people don't know this. But even during those times of intense activity, that we all say, oh, I have a job, he meditated for hours every single day. He will probably meditate at least 4 or 5 hours every day, plus doing everything that he had to do. So it's not like because Master told me intense activity, I'll do 14 Kriyas morning and evening, and that's it. No. He took it very, very seriously. And that is why he was able to do what he did, because he made, even then, meditation a priority. And he understood the need of balance as well. That many a times, whenever he will finish a big project or a big book, he will go into seclusion and be with Divine Mother for some time. Many a times during his seclusions, he will still write, but ideally he will meditate for at least 16 hours a day or something like that in those seclusions, and then he will come back and do all that intense activity. So he had intense outward and inner activity. And I think for all of us in this day and age, that's what we need to learn, that we need to use our will to build whatever we had to do, whatever is our dharma, through our job, through our family. Some more, some less, they have that dharma. But yet we had to always balance it with strong sadhana. There is no other way around if we want to be successful like Swamiji was. So many a times I like to close my eyes and see Swamiji in those times that he had. Even if you listen to his talks at that time. Now, most of the talks that are available on YouTube, for example, are of what Naveen is going to speak about more, his bliss years. He was just, even though he always had that bliss inside himself, he was not expressing it as much. He was expressing it different ways, through wisdom, through power, energy, will, love, but still not in the same way as he expressed it later on. If you listen to his talks on those times, it's quite amazing, because he was so intelligent and so well read and so knowledgeable. He will start talking about this writer who I never heard of, and that person I never even knew, and this particular study that I had no idea existed. And he will quote from all these things and about the great artists of those times, and about this and about that. Oh my God, how does he even know so much? I thought he was busy, building the work. And he will take the time to explain things so methodical that it's really wonderful for especially all of us who are a little newer and not in the bliss years perhaps, to listen to those things. The understanding of the teaching that he gave was so clear and so nice. Then in the later years, he didn't take as much time to explain things so carefully. It was more about bhakti. And that's what Naveen is going now to talk to us about.
Such beautiful covering of the various aspects of Swami Kriyananda's life, earlier life, and the will years as they are known as. we are disciples, and I am sure all of us are here to find God. So, how should we live our life? Are we born free like Yogananda ji? Are we an avatar? So, whom do you need to learn from? Every great master is known by his disciples, the quality of his disciples. You talk of Ram Bhagwan, what comes to your mind? Hanuman. Krishna, Arjun. Master was Arjun in that life. Jesus Christ, the 12 disciples. What we need to understand is what we need to do to get across this ocean of delusion. And that is where Swami Kriyananda was one of the foremost disciples of a great master like Yogananda ji. We need to imbibe and overcome the struggles that he had in his life. All of us know most of the stories associated with Swami Kriyananda's life. The struggles he had to go through in forming Ananda and all the litigations. But one thing, try and analyze in your life. Are your troubles anywhere close to it? And we celebrated Moksha Day a few days ago. When Swami Kriyananda was young and with Master, he had one day been sent to do a role of Jesus Christ because he had beard. So he went there and people said, oh, he looks like Jesus Christ. And he came back, and few days later on, Master called him, Walter, people are appreciating that you looked like Jesus. He says, rather than looking like him, I want to be what he was. And to which Master didn't say anything of any thought that we might say is the answer. He said, that will come in the end of your life. When he said that your life is of intense activity and meditation, he also said, in the end of this life, you will find God. And I am coming to that part. We are varying ages in our lives. And if you want to start a very important project in your life, what age would you say is the best age to start that project? Would you want to start a project at 77 years of age? Swami Kriyananda got guided from Master that he needs to go to India and start this work that we are feeling right now. In 2003, at the age of 77, he came with a group of disciples who are Naya Swamis of today, and they stayed in a small flat in Gurgaon, from where the work of Ananda started. He was 77 at that time. And how do we know Master was guiding him? When Swami Kriyananda had obviously been earlier in India, but when he came for this work in 2003, when he landed at the airport, some of the people who knew him from before came to receive him. And there was one Mr. Gupta, General Mahiwal would know of him, he's met him, he came to receive Swami Kriyananda on the airport. And when Swami Kriyananda came, he tried to touch his feet. So Swami Kriyananda said, no, you don't have to. And the moment Swami Kriyananda touched him, Mr. Gupta went into ecstasy. Such bliss that at that place, tears were flowing. What was happening? This was a true teaching, a way of spreading those teachings of a true master. And you see from that time onwards, wherever Swami Kriyananda went, there are stories of bliss and more bliss. He had all the ailments possible that you can think of. So if today you are thinking, oh, I stubbed my big toe and I will not sit for meditation. Wake up, man. Wake up. That's all I can say. You name of anything, he had it. You name of any operation, he had it. And he was doing this. Every aspect of his life. Never ever say that I can't do this. In this stage, today is 18th of May. On 18th of May 2005, he was giving a lecture in Rome. And he had so many ailments, and a new condition had come into his inner ear, the ability to balance, and vertigo or something it's called, but something more than that. He had difficulty in balancing himself, and he had to be kind of escorted at times because he couldn't walk. He comes onto the stage, stands and gives this lecture for an hour plus, and hundreds of people were there, enthralled in bliss listening to his talk. And he finishes. No one is aware that these are the problems he is having. And from there, he is driven to Assisi by car. Now, if a person is having that issue, the fluids in the inner ear get further disturbed. And when he reached Assisi, which was on 19th of May, which was his birthday, when he was brought out of the car, he couldn't even keep his head up. His head slumped like this. And the disciples who had seen this willful Swamiji saw. And some of them had tears in their eyes thinking that, what has happened? Such a vital person, that huge chest. And look at him. But then they thought that what it is that. And then he attended a few formalities of his birthday, and then when he was again being escorted by Jyotishji and Karthikeyanji, while going to the car, he told them to stop, and he turned and he lifted his head up, and bliss was emanating from his eyes. Such bliss that now everyone was in tears, but this time the tears was of realizing that in this condition he is with Master, feeling God's love and emanating that love. So never ever say in your life that I have problems and I can't meditate. That is what he was. Emanating that bliss, emanating that love that he was feeling for God and his Guru. It had come to him from his Guru, because he was that perfect disciple. Towards the end of his life, Narayani ji, you know of her, she was his personal assistant for the last 3.5 years. And she tells this story that even at this age, that is close to 87, he was looking after and going and giving lectures all over the world. In America, in Europe, in India. And she was traveling with him, and he had so many ailments. But she had to, and so in one of these so-called flights, they had a stopover in Dubai. So they stopped. And after clearing the formalities, she made Swamiji sit on his wheelchair, and she was next to him, and thinking that, okay, I have about half an hour of rest, 45 minutes of rest. And suddenly Swamiji tapped her and said, you see that lady there? And she looked and she noticed there was one lady who was crying. Go to her and talk to her. My Swamiji is having so many issues, but he is saying, so she went to her and realized that she had lost her passport, it had been stolen, so many issues, no phone, how do I get in touch with all these things and all. And she said, no, everything will be fine, don't worry. Spent a little time with her and came back to Swamiji, that trying to say from her side that I've done the good job you have told me, she's fine, she's feeling better. So she sat down and Swamiji said, Narayani, I think so, you need to go to her again and sit with her. So she went again. spent some more time with her, and by this time she had calmed down and was better. And after 5-10 minutes, she came back. And the third time, Swamiji said, I think so. You don't have to worry about me. Be with her. And when this thought in her that she is responsible for Swami Kriyananda and he requires my assistance, she opened her heart and tried to give the blessings that she had received. She felt such love rise in her, and that bliss could emanate from her. And that is the time she understood what Swamiji was doing. He could easily have gone himself and given this bliss. He was teaching her, by helping others, you are spreading the teachings of your master. And when you are in that bliss, you can do nothing else but share that bliss, because the very nature of that bliss is it expands by sharing. So today, we must realize this and imbibe it in our life, that we are here not just to attend the satsang and not only to do those kriyas twice a day. We are there to imbibe that bliss in us, be a perfect disciple like Swami Kriyananda, and be the beacons of the teachings of our masters. So once again, thank you for coming, and let's hope and pray that we too, like Swami Kriyananda, are able to be the beacons of our masters. Thank you, Ji. Om Guru.